Hello. I haven't shot one of these in a long while. I just had a case of severe food poisoning for 3 days. And then, right as I was coming out of it, I got a cold. So I had basically a double cleansing. It's the poor man's version of a $3,000 cleansing retreat, for free, of course. So it's better than wasting money to cleanse the body. It's lovely how uh, bacteria and viruses help to cleanse the human body. Anyways, I was recently I recently asked someone, "Can you give me some questions?" And that person gave me some questions. That person's probably going to watch this video anyway. We went back and forth. It got me thinking about some things, and then I was talking to some other people, and so on and so forth. And uh, in this video, or possibly series of videos, what I want to propose, the thesis I want to forward, is why the best is not the best. So, oh yeah, these glasses, I got these last year, last October, in Japan at Gins. The Gins in Japan, unlike the one in the US, everything comes with it, with the purchase. So you don't have to have a prescription. You get a test right there as part for free. Yeah, so I got the frame glasses. They're progressive. They also turn dark outside, and for a little under $100. So yeah, it was a great deal. Anyways, um, so imagine that you're in a situation where you have choices to make, and it doesn't matter what the situation is, but there's a number of choices, and you can move toward choice A, choice B, choice C, choice D, and so on. Let's say you have many, many options. One way in which we can mathematically or graphically represent your situation is you could try to imagine this three-dimensional terrain. Like you could think of like the old computers where you have this sort of, three-dimensional terrain with these grid lines, right? That are outlining the contours of this terrain. And you're kind of standing somewhere in the terrain and you see some mountain tops, peaks, hills, and you see troughs and dips and rolling hills and so on and so forth. And this in the graphical representation, the peaks, the high points are considered to be the better solutions, the better choices, and the dips and the troughs, the deep holes are considered the worst solutions. In other words, the dimension of where you are vertically represents the higher you are, the better off you are, the lower you are, the worse off you are. Just like when you're asked, pick a number between -10 and 10 to denote your mood right now. And if you say 8, that would be considered a positive emotion. Whereas if you said -10, it means you're probably suicidal or want to kill yourself or somebody else, rather. So, so you have this terrain, and depending on solution, so let's say the mountain peak over here is choice B, the mountain top over here is choice C, and so on. Now, choice B is higher than choice C, but choice B is further away, so it takes more effort, and so on. You can think of it that way. So in this, if you imagine that, and by the way, this is how mathematicians and scientists have modeled this question of how to find the best answer, how to find the best solution, how to make the best choice. They don't often use the word best, they often use the word optimal. And so the process is called optimization. The problem of optimizing a solution, for example. And so anyways, so you might think, okay, so I have these choices. Of course, I want the highest peak. So you start moving, and it seems pretty simple. But it turns out, I'm not aware of it happening earlier, but it turns out in the 80s and 90s, there was a paradigm shift in how people thought about approaching problems like this. And when I was younger, I was doing a PhD, and I often tell people I was doing mathematical modeling, but really I was interested in the study of complex adaptive systems. And interesting enough, the study of complex adaptive systems is, one could say, undergirded or supported by the theory of evolution. And so so people who are studying systems and so on have tended to think about things in terms of making choices on a terrain and trying to maximize the outcome. Yeah. In other words, be as high on the terrain as possible. And so anyway, I mentioned evolution theory. I wanted to make a quick few comments about evolution theory. If you haven't studied evolution theory, I really recommend it as a topic to engage in. I think that for almost anyone, they'll find it to be something of deep intellectual value. I would, at the time in my life when I came across it, it completely revamped my worldview. I would have said that at the time, the central tenet of my life was to have a growth mindset. And in coming across evolution theory, I completely changed to having a sustaining mindset as opposed to a growth mindset. But anyways, oh yeah, so that comment I just made is related to the overall topic. But I wanted to give an example from evolution. So imagine that you have a pond, or let's say two ponds in a jungle, and they're separated enough. But anyway, so you have these frogs in around one pond, and they've been there for decades, centuries, let's say, just living. And these frogs have these tongues that stick out for, like, let's say 6 inches out, and they catch flies. And they're going along. Along comes a mutation one time, and suddenly the offspring start showing tongues that are 3 feet long. And so now these new frogs can catch flies all over that the original frogs couldn't capture. And so there starts to be tension between the old frogs and the new frogs. And so the new frogs are dominating the eating scene. And so the old frogs are getting weak, and they realize we can't survive because the new frogs are eating up all our flies. So they move. They move out of the area. They take a long journey, cross the Red Sea, whatever. And then they end up in a new pond. And then they don't procreate, or they procreate, but anytime a long time one comes out, they kill them. So they continue like they used to. Now in this new pond, you have these new frogs. I mean, the original pond, you have these long-tongued frogs. So these long-tongued frogs seem to be the better, superior frog. But evolution theory doesn't say that superior species survive. And so in the scenario that I'm going to paint, suppose that in the original pond, these long-tongued frogs, they're so prolific at capturing flies that hey, Chibi, these flies soon get wiped out because they're all eaten up. And then so the new frogs, the new mutant frogs, run out of food and they just perish. They die, they go extinct. Whereas the old frogs that moved to the new pond, they're still thriving. Now that's one scenario. I made that scenario work out that way to illustrate an example that, well, two examples. One that has nothing to do with this talk, but it's still interesting, which is that it appears as if the mutant frog is stronger and better, but in fact, it exhibits a poor fit to the environment because it exhausts the available food. And there's a phrase that you might have come across in high school. It's survival of the fittest. And sometimes, I remember when I came across it, it didn't strike me until much later that it doesn't say survival of the strongest or survival of the smartest or survival of the most spiritual or anything like that. It's survival of the fittest, as in fit is not an intrinsic measure. It's not a measure like intelligence or strength or anything like that. It's a measure of how well the species fits with the existing environment. And so if that species can overwhelm the environment or change the environment in such a way as for the environment to become unfavorable, we would say that that species exhibits poor fit. So it will go extinct. It can't survive. I think that's a really interesting idea if one applies it to one's daily life or into one's life in general, that we're not here to become the smartest or strongest or best, whatever. We're here to become the best fit. And fit, again, people think fit as in, yeah, I'm going to get fit and get muscular and get fit. No, fit as in fit to the environment. the more that we can be, the more adaptive we can become to the environment that's around us, the more likely we're going to survive, not just survive, but thrive. Just like the original frogs in my story are thriving. Now that's just one outcome, right? A person can make up an entirely different story. But I made that story, I probably borrowed that story from somewhere, but to make this point. Now the point that's more, how long is this video already? Okay, it's already 10 minutes. Let me go to the next one.